All praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashim Yahweh Kodesh, the blunders to the elders and apostles of Clinton Stone, Shalom to the elect wishing his word in truth and in sincerity, with hope of receiving mercy of Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai. Yahweh is the name of the Heavenly Father. Yahweh Shai is the name of his only begotten Son. The so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native Americans, or the Israelites according to the prophecies that are written in the scriptures. I want to make it known that the RFID microchip is the charagma written about in Revelation 13 verse 16 and down, which is the MOTB. The miracle drug is the precursor to the charagma. Yahweh Shai, whom the world ignorantly called Jesus, is about to make his return upon the earth to deliver his elect and support our judgment as it is written. So I want to go straight into this lesson, doing a quick lesson on this clip that I saw, because everything is through the Spirit. I was watching a video of the elder apostle, a Rambler video, good news, and early in the morning, so somewhat I fell asleep after the video and wake up to this clip being played, and something very interesting, showing you some of the reasons why there is going to be sedition in America and around the world, because the governments of the world are lying to the people here, and they're using these various social media, these tech giants, to censor information here and to also push fake news, which is just propaganda. And that is one of the things that the US Secretary General has said they are going to battle disinformation and misinformation. But in truth and in fact, it's just the narrative that they're pushing, then don't want people to come up against. So it's just they're just going to censor people that is not pushing mainstream views, And that's exactly that is their statement in the article. So I want to run this clip so you can have an understanding what I'm speaking on, because I need to watch this clip in its entirety, but just listen to this part.
We tell the American people that we're going to have an honest, open conversation about issues, about challenges that our country faces. And everybody has their own facts. Congressman from New York is mentioning his facts. It's just very bizarre that Hunter Biden making tens of thousands of dollars a month with no credentials from a business in Ukraine, whether they're being investigated, who knows? I mean, these are all speculation, and it's something the American people can't really digest because we don't know the answers to it. And when we're told the answers by our government, by big corporations, by big tech, and they're repeatedly wrong, it creates a trust issue. So the American people do not trust what they're being told. They do not trust what they're being told. We're going to dig into the Hunter Biden laptop briefly. Jack Dorsey has said that he did not make that decision. Ms. Gaddy, did you make the decision to censor the Hunter Biden laptop story?
Yes, I was involved in that decision.
Who was the final arbiter? Because Mr. Roth has said he disagreed with that decision. Who was the final person that said, we're going to do this?
I ultimately approved that decision.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Roth, you have said previously that you did not believe that the New York Post story violated any policy. You've said that multiple times today. How many times, other than this one, did something get banned or flagged that you disagreed with? Is this the only one?
No, sir, not at all.
Okay, so
these are challenging.
Twitter repeatedly banned and censored material that you thought shouldn't be censored. Is that fair?
These are challenging judgment calls, and I think reasonable minds can differ about whether a given piece of content...
Okay, but on this one you did disagree. I just want to say, the American people need to have valid information to process decisions. I would argue that denying the American people the substance of Hunter Biden's laptop story Hunter Biden's laptop was wrong. You got photos and text messages of Hunter Biden committing multiple felonies, which was never actually criminal. There were no criminal charges. Must be nice. Hunter Biden and James Biden were negotiating deals with Chinese Communist Party agents, one of whom Hunter Biden classified as the spy chief of China. We have evidence at least one of Hunter's deals with Chinese Communist Party linked entities. Joe Biden was given a 10% equity stake in the joint venture. You have evidence that the Bidens were trying to sell America's natural resources to the Chinese. And this is my personal favorite. Evidence that the Bidens and a Chinese energy company owned by the Chinese Communist Party had leased office space. No further. Office space, his own personal office. Do you think the American people deserve to know that? I do. I think that there's a lot of smoke surrounding the Biden's relationship with the Chinese Communist Party. There's a lot of smoke surrounding the Biden's relationship with Ukraine. And they deserve to have the facts to make a decision for themselves. You all got it wrong in 2016 with Russian collusion. You got it wrong with Hunter Biden's laptop in 2020. You got it wrong regarding COVID at every turn. The American people deserve better.
Will the gentleman yield for a question?
Gentleman yield.
Will the gentleman yield for a question?
Gentleman yield.
Yes.
And Mr. Raskins. Mr. Baker, did you talk to any of the 51 former intel officials who sent the now famous letter on October 19th, 2020, saying that the story in the New York Post had all the classic earmarks of a Russian information operation? Have you talked to any of those 51 prior to that letter being sent on the 19th or after?
Sir, I can't remember who's on that group, but
Clapper, Brennan, Morrill.
I've talked to those people during the course of my career, yes.
Have you talked to them in your time at Twitter?
I can't remember who's on that list, so I'm afraid.
No, how about the three I just mentioned, Clapper and Brennan?
Okay.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, regular order.
Last question. Feel free to answer. Then we'll recognize Mr. Raskin.
Well, I was going to ask the gentleman before he left whether he's denying the Russian disinformation propaganda campaign that we've heard about from witnesses, or he's just denying Russian collusion, which was something that Mr. Mueller specifically did not address in his final report. He said collusion is not a legal concept. He was looking just at conspiracy, and he said there wasn't substantial enough evidence to charge conspiracy, but there were dozens of contacts between Donald Trump and the Russians that were documented in that report. That's all I wanted to say.
Chairman, if Chair recognizes Mr. Jordan, then we'll recess for...
Just to restate the question that's on the table to Mr. Baker. Did he talk with Mr. Clapper, Mr. Brennan?
He can also try to resurrect his political career. Elon Musk just purchased Twitter and therefore controls its editorial content. And among the first things he did was to fire some people, hire some people, denounce some prior decisions, and reinstate an unrepentant and still clearly lying Donald Trump to the platform. Those decisions, however heroic or imbecilic you think they might be, are protected by the First Amendment in the United States of America. Officially, Twitter happens to think they got it wrong about that day or two period. In hindsight, Twitter's former CEO, Jack Dorsey, called it a mistake. This apology might be a statement of regret about the company being overly cautious about the risks of publishing contents of potentially hacked or stolen materials, or it may reflect craven surrender to a right-wing pressure campaign. But however you interpret it, the apology just makes the premise of this hearing all the more absurd. The professional conspiracy theorists who are heckling and haranguing this private company have already gotten exactly what they want, an apology. What more do they want? And why does the U.S. Congress have to be involved in this nonsense when we have serious work to do for the American people? But what makes this hearing tragic is that if our colleagues really wanted to examine a serious problem involving American democracy and social media, my friends, it is staring us in the face right now. Twitter and other social media companies acted as central organizing and staging grounds for the January 6th violent insurrection against Congress and against Vice President Pence. Twitter became the national and global platform for incitement to seditious violence against our government, and a forum on the day of attack for coordinating logistical movements and tactical maneuvers in the mob violence against our police officers. In the lead up to January 6th, Twitter decided to allow Donald Trump and countless MAGA extremists to use the platform to spread Trump's ridiculous big lie and disinformation about the election. And soon the internet was replete with incitement for civil war, race war, insurrection, revolution, and mob violence. Twitter did so despite increasingly desperate appeals from its own employees to act in the interests of public safety approaching January 6th. The First Amendment is robust and expansive, but it stops at this point. It does not protect anyone's right to engage in incitement to imminent lawless action and violent action against the government or against other people. This is the Brandenburg Principle. There's no carve-out to free speech for speech relating to the New York Post or Hunter Biden or laptops, but there is a significant carve-out when the speech is deliberately calculated to produce imminent violence and chaos against the government. That's why Twitter's deliberate indifference to Trump's big lies and incitement, its decision to ignore the pleas of its own employees to deal with the impending explosion against our police and against Congress on January 6th are matters that require real investigation and reflection. Rather than conspiring to suppress right-wing MAGA speech, as my colleagues astonishingly claim, Twitter and other media companies knowingly facilitated Trump's spread of disinformation, or what his own sycophantic Attorney General William Barr would come to call bullshit, and gave voice to his followers' glorification of violence and calls for civil war. Today, we will hear from Anika Collier-Navaroli, a former Twitter employee turned corporate whistleblower and patriotic hero who raised the alarm inside Twitter and numerous accelerating warning signs that she saw leading up to the violent and catastrophic attack on the Capitol on January 6, 2021. Ms. Navaroli is here today to publicly testify about how senior officials at Twitter resisted her efforts to put policies in place or to enforce existing policies to promote public safety and to defend our national security. Twitter management, however, did not want to cross Donald Trump. I don't know precisely how we will solve the problem of private social media platforms being used for the organization of coups and incitement of violent insurrections against the United States or Brazil or any other country. But this is a grave problem confronting democracy, not just in America, but all over the world. It is not a silly, concocted partisan issue. We must analyze it carefully and legislate effectively to address it. And we must never forget that the enemies of democracy, led by autocrat and war criminal Vladimir Putin, are spending hundreds of millions of dollars on social media propaganda.
So, as you can see, what more I take from that is the using of these social media giants to push forth a narrative, and this narrative is being passed down by the leaders, the government officials, who have ties to these tech giants, whether they want to be Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or any other social media platform. Them can use this to push any narrative them choose to, demonize anyone they choose, disregard any information they choose to push a particular narrative. And this I got in return of the people not trust them, And what it gonna cause? Let's get the scriptures on that. Because the people have been lied to so long, in which the people are gonna revolt at a point, This is 2 Ezra 15 verse 14. Woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draw nigh. And one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hand. For there shall be sedition amongst men. What is sedition? Uprising against the authorities, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes. Who is the kings or princes? They are government officials here. From them presidents, them prime ministers, them mayors, them governors, all of these people that are in the leadership positions here, them are going to come up against. And the course of their action shall stand in their power.